So I want you to imagine that you possess this stunning, incredibly valuable heirloom seed.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Yeah, and it represents, years of your labor, your energy, just a ton of your time. And you want to protect it naturally, so you lock it inside this temperature-controlled titanium vault.
Right, totally safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is completely 100% insulated from the outside world.
Completely impenetrable. I mean, no sudden frost, no pests, no market panics, right? No unexpected disasters can ever reach it in there.
And here's the thing, by keeping it perfectly insulated from the elements like that, you've also guaranteed that it will never, ever grow.
Yeah, wow.
You haven't really preserved its potential. You've essentially just protected it into obsolescence.
Exactly. Because a seed's biological imperative, it isn't to just sit forever in a dark, sterile vault. Its fundamental purpose is to be planted.
Right.
It actually requires dirt and friction and, a degree of environmental uncertainty to activate its capacity to actually multiply.
And that tragic irony, the fact that trying to completely eliminate risk actually guarantees failure, is the foundational mindset shift we're examining in today's deep dive.
It really is.
We are looking at a text called The Seed of Wealth, From Saving to Multiplication. And the core logic here demands this kind of painful pivot away from just preserving what you have toward the calculated risk of actually multiplying it.
Right, which is scary for a lot of people.
Totally scary. But for you listening, we're not just going to skim the surface of saving versus investing. We want to unpack the actual underlying mechanics of wealth creation.
Yes.
The psychological traps we fall into, and why the ultimate asset might not even be in your portfolio at all.
The source material is highly compelling because, financial advice can often feel incredibly abstract, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's just numbers on a screen most of the time.
Exactly. But this text grounds it in a very tangible, universal metaphor. The journey from a single seed to a thriving crop. It forces us to confront that friction between our psychological desire for safety and the cold, mathematical reality of how money actually operates over time.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are all taught from day one that saving money is the responsible thing to do. So why does this text suggest that saving just isn't enough?
Well, the text is very clear that holding on to cash, what it calls cash retention, is a necessary defensive line. It's a prerequisite.
Right. Nobody's arguing against having an emergency fund. If the transmission on your car blows out or your roof leaks, you need liquidity.
Absolutely. You have to have that protection against short-term uncertainty.
But we're conditioned to view that defensive stance as the finish line, right? We treat the fully funded savings account as the ultimate financial achievement because it physically feels secure.
Yes, exactly. We know inflation exists. That's economics 101. But the text suggests that we willingly choose the mathematical certainty of inflation simply to avoid the psychological discomfort of market volatility.
It's so true. It's like saving is basically putting your star player on the bench just so they don't get injured.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right? Yes, it keeps them completely 100% safe from harm, but you are guaranteeing you won't win the game. You literally can't score.
What's fascinating here is how the text frames that exact psychological comfort against the reality of inflation. That is the defensive trap, perfectly summarized.
The defensive trap. I love that term.
Yeah, we naturally crave predictability. Evolutionary psychology wired us to stockpile resources for the winter. If you stockpile grain, you have grain.
Right. It doesn't just disappear.
But fiat currency doesn't operate by the laws of thermodynamics. It operates by the policies of central banks.
Yeah.
When you look at the mechanics of modern economics, the money supply is continuously expanding.
So, meaning more money is always being printed?
Exactly. Therefore, by definition, a static pool of savings captures a shrinking percentage of the total economic pie every single day.
So $1 you save today represents a specific fraction of the total money in existence. If the money supply doubles over a decade, but your savings stay exactly the same, your actual purchasing power gets cut in half.
Yes, regardless of the nominal numbers sitting on your screen.
Man, that's brutal. You aren't actually keeping the MVP perfectly safe on the bench. You're slowly draining their energy while they just sit there.
That is the exact mechanism of purchasing power erosion. You successfully avoid the sprained ankle of a sudden market downturn, sure, but you forfeit the championship by default.
Wow.
The text emphasizes that the vault guarantees a slow, invisible loss. The math does not care about your feelings of security. Every day your capital sits idle, its velocity is zero, and its relative value is decaying.
Okay, so if saving is a guaranteed invisible loss due to currency expansion, I mean, my immediate instinct is to take my excess cash and just throw it into an index fund just to stop the bleeding.
Right, just get it out of the vault.
Exactly. But I'm guessing the source warns against that kind of panic deployment, because just throwing seeds into a hurricane isn't exactly farming.
It absolutely warns against that. The text is very deliberate in separating the storehouse from the field. You cannot plant every seed.
Okay.
As we noted, cash retention remains the non-negotiable prerequisite. You need that short-term protection first because liquidity prevents forced liquidation.
Wait, forced liquidation meaning if I put every single dollar I have into the market and then, God forbid, I have a medical emergency during a recession, I have to sell my investments at a massive loss just to cover the bill.
Precisely. You've essentially chopped down the apple tree for firewood because you didn't have any dry wood stored in the shed.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
The floor must be established by liquidity. You keep enough cash to ensure you never have to interrupt the compounding process of your investments.
Okay, so once I have that defensive floor established, how does the source suggest we actually switch to offense?
That's where it introduces the concept of productive capital deployment, moving from just storing seeds to actually planting them.
Productive capital deployment.
Yes, the source group's skills, assets, and investments all under the same umbrella term. It calls them multipliers.
Multipliers. Okay, if we step away from the agricultural metaphor for a second, this makes me think of corporate strategy.
Ooh, how so?
Well, if you look at a company that just hoards cash indefinitely, like Blockbuster in its twilight years, they eventually get eaten alive by competitors who actively reinvest their capital into new technologies.
Like Amazon.
Exactly, like Amazon did for 2 decades. Amazon notoriously showed, minimal profits for years because every single excess dollar was aggressively deployed right back into infrastructure and logistics.
That is a brilliant real-world parallel. Amazon was continuously planting its seeds rather than storing them in a vault just to show a fat profit margin on a quarterly report. The machinery of wealth creation requires continuous reinvestment. When the text talks about moving to multiplication, it isn't just talking about simple interest. It's targeting the mechanism of compounding, where the returns on your capital begin generating their own returns.
So the velocity of your money increases because the asset base is constantly expanding.
Exactly. And the math behind that is staggering over long time horizons. A static pile of cash has a linear negative trajectory in real terms, compounding growth curves exponentially.
The text distills this dynamic into one very sharp dichotomy, which I love. It says, saving keeps you safe, but multiplication sets you free.
Safety versus freedom. Safety is static, defensive, and ultimately decaying. Freedom is dynamic, offensive, and compounding.
But if we follow the logic of Amazon aggressively reinvesting into its own infrastructure, where does this source suggest we deploy our first round of excess capital?
Well, you'd think it's external, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I have a surplus, the traditional financial advice is to immediately funnel it into the S&P 500, or maybe, I don't know, a down payment on real estate.
That is the standard external playbook, yes. But here's where the text makes a really profound pivot. It argues that external financial markets shouldn't be your primary target for your initial excess resources.
Wait, really? Then what is?
It specifically identifies human capital as the apex multiplier.
Human capital?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you deploy financial capital into the broader market, you deploy it into your own skill acquisition. You are the infrastructure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, but how does the math on human capital actually compete with historical market returns?
That's a fair question.
Like, if I take $1,000 and put it in the stock market, I may get an 8% or 10% return? Are we really saying that spending $1,000 on a data analytics course or a public speaking coach is going to mathematically outperform Wall Street?
In the initial stages of wealth building, it doesn't just outperform it, it completely eclipses it. Let's break down the mechanics.
Okay, lay on me.
If you invest $1,000 in the stock market, an optimistic 10% return yields you $100 after a year.
Right.
Now, that is entirely passive, sure, but $100 does not alter your standard of living or your wealth trajectory.
No, it really doesn't. But if I take that same $1,000 and use it to acquire a high leverage skill, let's say I get a certification in project management, or I hire a consultant to refine my sales negotiation tactics.
Yes.
The return profile is completely asymmetrical.
Highly asymmetrical. Think about it. If that negotiation training allows you to secure a 20% raise on a $70,000 salary, that's a $14,000 return in year one alone.
Oh, wow.
That is a 1,400% return on the initial $1,000 investment.
That is wild to think about it that way.
And here is where the true mechanics of compounding kick in. That new higher salary becomes your baseline for every future raise, bonus, and 401k match for the rest of your entire career.
The Amazon analogy clicks perfectly now. I am upgrading the internal operating system of the business, which is me, before I worry about parking money in someone else's business.
That's it.
It's like upgrading the farmer's knowledge and tools before they go out and buy more land to plant on. If you don't know how to farm, extra land or extra financial capital won't really help you.
That's exactly how the source frames it. The financial capital is essentially the fuel, but your human capital is the engine.
I like that.
If you pour premium aviation fuel into a lawnmower, you still just have a lawnmower. By upskilling, you are physically upgrading the engine to a high-performance vehicle.
So if I don't upgrade my own capacity, throwing small amounts of financial capital into the stock market is just highly inefficient. I'd basically just be trying to scale a flawed, low-margin business model.
Precisely. This is why the text emphasizes that you are the first multiplier. It fundamentally alters the trajectory of your wealth creation because you're actively increasing your earning capacity.
Which gives you more seeds to plant.
Right, which in turn generates larger and larger pools of excess capital to deploy into those traditional financial markets later.
Let's talk about the risk profile of human capital too, because if we look at external markets, a systemic shock can wipe out a significant portion of your portfolio overnight.
Oh, absolutely. We've all seen it happen.
A sudden liquidity crisis can freeze your assets. But, short of severe cognitive decline, no macroeconomic downturn can confiscate a skill you've internalized.
Exactly.
Like the ability to write persuasive copy, manage a complex supply chain, or write Python code that stays in your head, regardless of what the Federal Reserve is doing with interest rates.
That resilience is a crucial characteristic of human capital. It functions as an inherently inflation-proof asset.
How so?
Consider the mechanics of inflation. As the cost of living rises, businesses are forced to charge more for their goods and services. Consequently, the underlying value of the skills required to run those businesses also rises in nominal terms.
Ah, I see.
Your market value automatically adjusts to the inflationary environment in a way that static cash just never will.
Okay, so if we accept that upskilling is the highest yield initial investment, does the text offer any parameters on what kind of skills we should be focusing on?
It does, implicitly.
Because learning to play the ukulele is technically skill acquisition, but unless I'm pivoting to a career as a street performer, it's not exactly going to multiply my baseline earning capacity.
Right. While the source doesn't prescribe a specific career path, its underlying logic points directly toward the concept of skill stacking and leverage.
Skill stacking.
Yes. You want to acquire skills that act as direct multipliers for the foundational skills you already possess. Let's say you are an exceptional graphic designer. That is a highly valuable but linear skill.
Because you get paid for the hours you spend designing.
Exactly. But if that designer spends capital to learn basic behavioral psychology and direct response copywriting, they aren't just a designer anymore.
Right. They can now architect end-to-end conversion campaigns.
Yes. They've moved up the value chain from a commodity service provider to a revenue generator. They have stacked complementary skills to create an entirely new, exponentially higher value asset profile.
And if they subsequently learn, say, operational management to oversee offshore teams handling the basic design execution, they've added leverage.
Precisely. They've successfully decoupled their earning capacity from their personal time. That is the essence of productive capital deployment applied directly to human capabilities.
For you listening, framing skills as a financial multiplier like this completely changes how we should view our daily habits.
It really does.
Like wrestling with a difficult new software program, reading a dense industry report, or even actively listening to a deep dive like this one. It isn't just an intellectual exercise or a hobby, it is literally an act of capital deployment.
Yes, exactly.
You are investing time and cognitive energy into the apex multiplier.
It reframes self-improvement from a leisurely pursuit into a fiduciary duty to your future self.
I love that. Now, if upskilling is the ultimate internal multiplier, how do we express that value externally? Because the latter half of the source material takes a very meta turn.
It does. It shifts to communication.
Right. Once we understand these mechanics, the inflation trap, the need for liquidity, the compounding power of human capital, we run into the problem of actually communicating it. How do we explain these dense financial mechanics to different audiences without their eyes glazing over?
The text acknowledges that the language of wealth is highly contextual. It presents two completely different translations of the exact same underlying mechanics to demonstrate how framing dictates reception.
It's all about knowing your audience.
Exactly. It illustrates that you have to tailor the vocabulary without compromising the mathematics. The first example it gives is tailored for a broad, perhaps younger audience, essentially the social media hook.
Yeah, the version designed to survive a doom scroll. The text quotes it as, "Let me find it. Don't just store your seeds, plant them in skills, assets, and compounding growth."
It is punchy and highly visual. It relies on the primal biological metaphor of the seed. You don't need an MBA or a background in finance to intuitively grasp that a seed hidden in a drawer is useless compared to a seed planted in fertile soil.
Exactly.
It anchors a complex macroeconomic reality, the devaluation of fiat currency, in a simple, universally understood image.
But if I walk into a corporate boardroom or a pitch meeting with institutional investors and tell them I want to plant my seeds so I can be free, they're going to politely but firmly show me the door.
Oh, without a doubt. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is precisely why the source provides the analytical translation.
Let's hear it.
The boardroom version strips away the organic metaphor and replaces it with precise mechanical terminology. It reads, "Wealth creation requires productive capital deployment investing in skill acquisition, equity, or income-generating assets."
It's incredible to parse those side by side.
Isn't it?
Storing your seeds translates mechanically to cash retention. Planting them becomes productive capital deployment, and skills and assets become skill acquisition and equity.
Yes. The vocabulary completely shifts.
But the underlying engine, the machinery of wealth creation, doesn't change one bit. The truth is invariant.
That is the vital takeaway regarding communication. The mechanics of inflation, the necessity of a defensive liquidity floor, and the exponential mathematics of compounding multipliers do not care what vocabulary you use to describe them.
Right, math is math.
The physics of money remain constant, whether you're wearing a hoodie on a podcast or a suit in a boardroom. The goal of recognizing these different framings isn't to prefer one over the other, but to become bilingual in the language of wealth.
So you use the seed metaphor to conceptualize the strategy internally, to make it resonant and motivating for yourself.
Yes.
And then you use the analytical jargon to execute that strategy professionally in the marketplace. You really need both to operate effectively.
Exactly. The metaphor provides the why and the jargon provides the how.
So if we synthesize everything we've pulled from the seed of wealth, the logical through line for you, the listener, is clear. First, respect the mechanics of the system.
Secure the floor.
Exactly. Establish your defensive floor with cash retention because liquidity is the only thing that prevents forced liquidation during an emergency. But once that vault is secure, you must escape the defensive trap.
You can't just stay in the vault.
Right. You have to recognize that inflation is a mathematical certainty designed to slowly bleed static capital. Don't let inflation rot your harvest. You have to pivot to productive capital deployment.
And crucially, recognizing that the most productive capital deployment doesn't start with a brokerage account. It starts with upgrading the engine.
Upgrade the farmer before you buy the farm. Your human capital, your unique stack of complementary skills, is the only asset that is entirely under your control, impervious to market crashes, and capable of generating asymmetrical 1,000% returns in the early stages of your wealth journey.
It is the foundation that dictates the yield of every financial seed you plant thereafter.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We've laid out the mechanics, we know the why and the how. So what does this all mean for you tomorrow morning?
It leaves us with a fascinating challenge regarding measurement.
Oh, this is a great point to leave on.
We've established that upskilling and human capital provide the highest initial return on investment. But here is the inherent friction. The yield of a traditional financial asset is incredibly easy to track.
Yeah, you log into a banking app, you look at a screen, and you see the exact fractional percentage your portfolio went up or down today.
Right. The feedback loop is immediate and highly visible. But human capital doesn't come with a ticker symbol.
There is no dashboard for your own competence.
Precisely. How do you accurately measure the compounding ROI of a new skill you've just learned? How do you track the financial value of a shifted perspective or a newly acquired mental model?
It's tough.
It is. The challenge for you is to look inward at your own unique skill stack. Look at the specific capabilities you've developed over the last year. Try to quantify those hidden financial returns.
Because if you can't measure the value those invisible skills are generating, you won't know where to deploy your capital next.
Exactly. How are your skills multiplying your potential right now, long before you ever plant a single seed in the financial market?